So the introduction to Inkscape you're going to see here was recorded in a previous lecture, so you may hear some references to some other assignments that aren't your own. So just bear in mind that you want to read the assignment, but the overall techniques, the ways that we're looking at placing text and working with Inkscape is unchanged for the project that you're doing. So dive in, have a look, and I'm also going to upload any answers to any questions that you have about Inkscape. So if you're designing your project and want to ask me questions, then fire away and I will answer them with a video tutorial that explains how to do that particular technique, or I'll point you towards another tutorial if I find one that explains it well. So dive in, have a look at how to create and edit with Inkscape, and if you have any questions then just drop me a message on the course message board. So if you've opened up Inkscape for the first time, then it kind of has some similarities between Illustrator and Photoshop, in that we have a toolbar for creating elements on the left hand side here, and then some tools on the right, panels for zooming in, zooming out, copying and pasting things. And I'm not an Inkscape expert, but I know the tools that you need to use, so we'll I might stumble around a little bit as we learn this, but we'll be able to figure it out together, I'm sure. So the first tool that you'll need in Inkscape will be the type tool for kind of typing out your manifesto. And basically the way that this works is you're creating a text box that will fill up with type. So as we type into this box, that type is going to wrap into the box. Okay, and there are three kind of key things to think about when you're setting your type. Okay, so at the moment we've got a massive type, 32 point type here, which is going to be big on this letter size paper that's set up. But basically we want to think about the typeface we're selecting. Okay, so we've got a list of all the different fonts that we can use up here. Okay, and there'll be all the fonts that are installed on your system. Okay, so we can select any kind of font that we want. Let's just zoom in a little here. Okay, and as long as we've, oops a daisy, here we go. Alright, and as long as we've got the type that we're working on selected, we'll be able to adjust and edit that font. Okay, so think about the font that you want to use. Is it something digital? Is it something clean? Is it something old school like a serif font? So we have a sans serif font here. Okay, and then if we select something like Georgia or Garamond, we have a serif font. Okay, has anyone come across that terminology before of a serif and sans serif font? Hands up who knows what that means. Okay, so basically we have several different kinds of serif, and then we have sans serif as well. So the sans serif is this top font. Okay, so basically what sans serif means is that it's this cleaner, kind of more modern looking font where the ends of the type are flat, so there's square blocks at the end. Okay, and it gives that type a very particular look and feel, whereas a serif font has these kind of flourishes at the end of the type. So at the F you can see it kind of curving out, and that's the serif. At the edge of the S, instead of it ending on a hard block, it's actually serifed off at the end. Okay, one of the theories between serif and sans serif that's used a lot nowadays is that sans serif fonts are easier to read on screen. So if you're ever doing any web design typesetting, or you're looking at websites, you'll notice that most of the fonts that appear in the body text of a website design are sans serif. They don't have that serifed edge that we see on this bottom typeface at the bottom, and that's basically to do with blurriness. So when you make a serif font really small on screen, it starts to distort and you can't read it, so it looks really rubbish. Okay, I have to remember not to swear when I'm recording it. So okay, so when you've got an F here, okay, you can see here we've got the F sans serif, sans without, and then the serifed F here. Okay, so that's one decision to make. We also have another kind of font, if we can find. Okay, let's just stretch this out. So when I started typing the next line, my box here was too small in Inkscape. So when I break to the next line, you can see now, whoops, let's just make sure we've got it selected. We've made a new box. So one thing that Inkscape does, and if you read the kind of information about it, is that it changes the shortcut on a Mac from Command to Control, which is why I'm suddenly doing things that I don't need to do. So if I press enter here, I'm actually typing, but it's typing outside the box, which is why it's red on the outside here, and I need to expand it to kind of reveal that type behind. Okay, so that's something that's good to know. So if I just grab these last couple of lines here, we can type in the name for a font. Okay, so Rockwell is a different kind of font. It's a slab serif font. So if you ever see a website for kind of like someone who sells trucks or someone who's selling big steaks, they have this slab serif font because it makes it feel like you're putting a slab of something or you're moving a slab with a truck. So it's got this kind of hard, almost brick-like serif to it at the end. So on the bottom of the F here, it's like that slab serif. So these are the kind of main three decisions you'll have when you're actually typesetting or laying out your font. Okay, so that's one element of this. The other element is how we space out our font, so how we create the spacing between our font as well as the size of it. So if we take, let's just see if we can grab something from here. So here, if we have a look at, oh, that's too small. Okay. So here, if we have a look at kind of Bruce Mau's layout, he's made a kind of really clear decision to have these several different sizes of the font to kind of draw your eye to the things that he's wanting you to read at first. So don't be cool, explore the other edge, and then you have to kind of search for these other things. So there's this play with the different sizes of the fonts, okay, and also a play with something called the leading, which is the space between the lines of the fonts. Okay, so in order to do that in Inkscape, okay, so this is, oops, so Control A to select everything. Okay, so leading is basically the distance between two lines. Okay, so if we have a look up here, we have the opportunity to kind of change the leading, okay, between those two lines in Inkscape. So you're creating more space or less space with the type. Okay, and it gives you a nice control over the design, and also allows you to create some kind of design within it as well. So if we just make this bold and we start to drop the leading down, you can type in here too, we can start to get the type to overlay itself as well. I don't know if you look at any kind of magazine designs or layouts and that kind of stuff, but you'll see a lot of the time when they're trying to push and pull and play with type and make something look edgy or try and make you look at it a bit harder, they'll do this play with the type. Well, they'll make letters overlap one another, perhaps using a color, so we can highlight a type and change the color below, so you can start to get this design of the type kind of playing around with it. Okay, so as you're working in here, think about the leading and also think about the tracking. Okay, so, and the tracking is the vertical version of the leading, where basically we're changing the distance slowly. Okay, this is the kerning and this is the tracking, I think. Yeah. Okay, so you can see here we're changing the distance between the words here. Okay, and here we're changing the distance between the letters. So actually it does, Inkscape does this slightly differently to all other applications when it's changing the tracking or the kerning, but you can see this use of space, the line space, in this design as well. Okay, and you can see a play on it in here as well, where this different version of it, okay, is playing around with the justification as well. So in order to get these flat edges on the edge of each of these paragraphs, which is kind of a different version of Bruce Mau's an incomplete manifesto, we're getting these rivers between the type, which is normally seen as a bad thing, but in this design it's kind of part of the design where you can see you've moved different parts of the sentence apart from one another. Okay, so it's something to play with, something to experiment with in your design. And I think really I'd like to focus this task on a type setting exercise rather than incorporating lots and lots of design elements. So think about how you can use really simple type elements to get the designs to kind of speak to what you're trying to do. Okay, so in Inkscape, let's just hide a couple of things so we can get back to it. Okay, we've got the tracking, the leading, the kerning. We can space out the type. We can also layer things as well. Okay, and I haven't played too much around with layers in Inkscape, but basically layering in Photoshop, in Illustrator works whereby you're basically stacking things like a deck of cards. So from bottom to top, you can stack things one on top of another. So we can have some control over bodies of type within one type box. But if we start to layer things up, okay, these layers above are going to start to obscure the layers below. Okay, so basically this is going to overlay the type below, so you can get some play on the type as well by pushing and pulling the layers around too. Okay, so the layers button in Inkscape I haven't found yet. Let's just have a look, but we'll find it a little bit later. Okay, so the layers will be one thing that we need to cover, and then obviously we've got rectangles, 3D boxes, circles, which we can click on and then create. One thing before you discover the layers is that if we create an object, we can go to the object menu, okay, and then we can use these options to raise and lower the object. So we can send the object to the back, which is going to send it, or lower it to the bottom, which is going to send it right to the back of the document, or bring it to the front. Okay, so under the object menu you have these options for kind of moving the layers around. Okay, any questions about Inkscape? Okay, I'm just going to run through one more thing, which is how to create a new document. So if you go to File, New, okay, then basically it creates a brand new document, and in order to modify this file, we can go to the document properties and we can adjust the width and height, okay, either in millimeters, inches, centimeters, or whatever kind of takes your fancy. So at the moment I would work to letter or legal, unless you've got another specific size that you want to kind of work to for the layout and design of this. Okay, so we've briefly covered a few things. The other thing that's really useful as well when you're laying out your designs, we talked about the grids and kind of getting things into even columns, are these. If we click on the side in the ruler here, we can drag in guides which allow us to line things up. Okay, so we can, as we can in Photoshop and Illustrator, we can draw guides in and lay things out. Okay, and as we go on with Inkscape and people work on their projects, as you come across a problem, you can look online. There's a lot of kind of good tutorial material there, but ask me a question and I'll quickly respond with a video as we're kind of going through it. So don't feel like you're on your own and you're stuck. If you chat to people who are in my Digital Studio Tools class last semester, I was normally pretty quick with answering a question and then sharing that answer with the rest of the class in the form of a tutorial. Okay, so those are the basic tools of Inkscape, and we'll kind of answer more questions about that as we go on.